Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today's topic, A Room 10 by 8 by K.S. Daggal. Kartar Singh Daggal. He was born on 1st March 1917 in Rawalpindi. He died on 26th January 2012. He was an Indian writer who wrote in various languages like Punjabi, Urdu, Hindi, and in English. His works include short stories, novels, dramas, and plays. His works have been translated into Indian and foreign languages. He has served as Director of All India Radio AIR. He was awarded the Padma Bhushan by Government of India in 1988. In 2007, he was awarded the Sahitya Academy Fellowship, the highest honor given by Sahitya Academy, India's National Academy of Letters. K.S. Daggal has authored 24 collections of short stories, 10 novels, 7 plays, and 7 literary criticisms, and 2 poetry collections, also autobiography. Many of his books have been adapted by various universities for graduate studies. Among his works are such like Birth of Song, Come Back My Master, Danger, One Drop of Light, New House, Golden Bungalow, In the Evening, A Muslim Girl, A Room 10 into 8. Story starts. The Malik's family consisted of 6 members: Mr. Malik, his mother, his wife, and his children, a daughter and a son, and his daughter-in-law. The story exposes how the construction of house of their own stimulates various ideas in them, and it revolves around the theme of constructing a house and designing various parts of it. The story gets started at the point of suggestions by given Mrs. Malik to the architect. Mrs. Malik looked at the draft plan and pointed the square into the architect and asked him to plan a room with 10 by 8, a room for my mother-in-laws, and after her time we could use it as a storeroom. The architect did not seem to understand. He looked puzzled. I mean, my mother-in-law could use the room for the present. As you know, she is an old woman. She isn't it going to be her for. And after her, it could be converted into a storeroom. After having designed the draft as they wished, they had to get the approval of the corporation. Once the approval was got, they executed the plan with care. Mrs. Malik was more interested than Mr. Malik in visiting the site every day, supervising every details and lending help to masons and other women there. She would be the first to go to the site and last to leave the site. During this time, besides lending help to the constructors, in order to have a cordial relationship with their future neighbor, she met them and befriended with them. The story focuses on the place where they wanted to have their space. It is understood that long back, Malik had purchased a plot in the most fashionable colony in New Delhi. The plot was left laying as such as they did not have the thought of constructing a house there then. But once Mr. Malik was posted back to Delhi, they thought of constructing a house, their own. The house which they wanted to construct It creates a lot of expectations and desires in the arts heart of Mrs. Malik. She was sick of the transfers of her husband to different places. So she decided to live in the new house once it would be constructed. Despite the fact that her husband might get transferred to other places, she wanted to get settled permanently in the new house with their children. There was no objection from her side to keep her mother in law with her. Shifting house from one place to another involves a lot of mental process, and this process lets one take some decisions regarding the physical things that one has in this context. One has to make a selection of what to take and what not to take. Mrs. Malik is no expectations to it. What Mrs. Malik wanted to bring to the new house shows the notions she had about the space where she had been and where she would be. Her house, where they were residing, had furniture, but Mrs. Malik did not like to take even a single piece of the old furniture from there to the new house. She wanted to have new furniture to a new house. This reveals Mrs. Malik's divided views about the old space and the new space and desires and decisions. Once the constructions got started, she engaged herself in getting new furnitures to their new house. She was not interested to take a even single piece of the old furniture with them. This shows that Mrs. Malik had developed certain notions in her mind regarding the shifting new house. There is well-known proverb that man proposes but God disposes. This proverb would be very well related to the contrary events that happened to the Maliks at the end. Once the house got built, they could not go there as Mr. Malik got an offer from the government to run its office there. The economical support that would be gained by Maliks from the new space made the postponed their desire to live in the house as soon as it was constructed. For the sake of the financial support, Maliks had to compromise with their desires, likes, plans, and so on. When the thought of getting settled emerged from them, they could not get it easily. They had to fight with the government to restore their paradise. Meanwhile, their son got married and Mr. Malik got retired. Soon after, Mr. Malik passed away. His absence brought changes in the power of the inmates, that is, Mrs. Malik. Their daughter in law was very keen in settling in their new abode. She had the power to act accordingly to her decisions. When the architect showed the sketch of the house in the color, Mrs. Malik saw the figure of the lady of house standing on the veranda, leaning against the marble pillar. Mrs. Malik thought that the figure on sketch was as tall as Mrs. Malik, leaning against the pillar. She stood the way Mrs. Malik used to stand there. As they were shifting from their old house to new house, while traveling along with her son and daughter-in-law, it occurred to her whether the figure painted by the architect was that of her daughter-in-law. She also thought how it could be possible as her daughter in law was not there at that moment. As she was going with them, she thought of the great care she had taken in constructing the house. As they reached the new house, the show the power of shift from one person to another person. The daughter in law took decisions to place their thing in their new home, much to the disappointment of her mother in law. As soon as they reached the house, daughter in law jumped out into the veranda. She stood leaning against the marble pillar exactly the way the architect had painted the woman in the sketch. Mrs. Malik felt a wrench at her heart. Her sorrow, disappointment, her daughter in law directed her to go to the room 10 by 8. From this story, we teach a lesson that in what manner we act with our parents or grandparents, similar way our kids will act with us during our old age. Thank you. Support me for more videos on my channel. Thank you once again.